Before we get into today's episode, we're very excited to thank our first ever podcast sponsor, Grooming Lounge. Grooming Lounge is a brand that John and I have both been fans of for a long time. They're actually based out of my hometown of Washington, D.C., and groominglounge.com is one of the premier sources for men's grooming supplies. So they carry all the brands you know and love, like Kiehl's and Jack Black and Anthony and Baxter, but they also have their own in-house brand that's also called Grooming Lounge, and the products are fantastic. My favorite Grooming Lounge product is their Best Smeller Body Wash. It was voted the best smelling body wash by the Huffington Post, so it's aptly named. It's got a kind of classic but contemporary black pepper scent, and it lathers really nicely. It's my current favorite body wash. But they also carry basically everything you need, from aftershave to beard moisturizers to cleansers and colognes and combs and double-edged razors and really anything else a guy needs to look and smell great. Grooming Lounge also has a physical presence in the Washington, D.C. area. They have two flagship shops, one in Tyson's Corner and one in downtown D.C., and you can get haircuts, beard trims, hot shaves. I actually took my dad to Grooming Lounge a few years ago on Father's Day, and we both got their signature manicure and pedicure, and I gotta say, it was a delightful experience. 10 out of 10 would recommend. So if you live in the DC area or if you're traveling through, I definitely recommend checking out one of the Grooming Lounge shops. But no matter where you are, you can go to groominglounge.com/buttonedup to check out their entire selection of grooming products and supplies. And if you do want to try their in-house brand, you can use the promo code BUTTONEDUP to save 15% off your order. So again, you can go to groominglounge.com/buttonedup to check out their entire selection, including shaving, beard products, skin products, hair care, and body washes. And if you do want to try out their in-house brand, use the code BUTTONEDUP to save 15%.
So today on the Button Up Podcast, we are welcoming Greg Smith from Chalk Mark Style. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning.
So we always like to talk through having, you are now running a custom suit maker, but we always like to figure out, how'd you get to where you are today?
Well, that's a great question. So I started in menswear at Men's Warehouse when I was 18 years old. Thought it was a good kind of opening point for me with menswear. Great place to work, great place to start, but it was limited in what I wanted to do. My dad actually bought custom suits from Tom James for 15 years, and I saw all that. I saw how that process worked, and I thought it was fascinating that they came to the customer rather than my dad having to go into a retail shop. And so after a few years of working at Men's Warehouse, I decided to apply to work for Tom James, and was told I was a little too young, so I went and worked for a different company that was a direct competitor called Astor and Black, and went after their business. So here in Salt Lake City. So after that, I worked with Astor and Black for a couple of years. They unfortunately went under in 2013. And I went to work for a couple other companies until we started Chalkmark. So
growing up for you, was suiting always, was it like your Sunday best sort of thing, or was it very much, important to, it sounds like your dad was a little more informed in suiting than most.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, but my dad was an accountant. He had to wear suits every day. So he, I think he got introduced to Tom James at a pretty early point in his career, and started buying from them at he was by no means a high roller. He was buying at their lowest level, but wanted to look nice for his clients. So Tom James has a really great method that I think a lot of people have copied, in that they bring your fabric books around and will sell you right there in your office, and then bring it and deliver it to you. And nobody else had really done that concept. It was, when you were buying custom suits, you generally went into the shop and had to be measured there and fit up there. And there's still a lot of shops that do that. But we've always loved that concept that we make it easy for you to buy clothing. So Tom James did a really good job with that, and I've just tried to kind of mimic that.
Okay.
With the companies I've worked with. So
you spent a few years on the road, hitting the pavement, carrying the case, really learning the ins and outs of that industry.
Frankly, that's still what I do. With Chalkmark, we tried to have a wide variety of clothing that we carry, but it's still back to the bread and butter of we come directly to you. You pick out your cloth, we take 38 measurements, and we build out clothing from there. So it's pretty unique process, but also, I guess, not that unique in the same because there's other companies that do it.
Well, yeah. So as you're doing Aster and Black, though, like how long are you there where you start to say like this is something I could do on my own as my own entity?
So I was with Aster and Black for almost 2 years before they went under, and was doing pretty well there. Kind of got the basic gist of how things needed to work, and it was right when they were going under that I was starting to think of doing our own thing. My wife and I had started Chalkmark already, and she was actually just hand making pocket squares. So it was kind of a side business that went with Aster and Black. So Chalkmark's been around for a while. It was just a different thing at that point. But I worked for a company called Elevate after Aster and Black. They're a big custom clothing company out of Los Angeles. And it was shortly after Aster and Black, I was there for maybe a year, that I started thinking, okay, here's the time I need to do my own thing. So, pretty much 2015, we started on our own, and it was a wild ride starting our own thing, but it's been pretty fun since. So, we've got more clients. So we were based in Salt Lake City, Utah, but I've got more clients outside of the state of Utah than I do in, because there's always a need for custom apparel. So I'm just going where I can get the business. So
It seems like by the time you guys officially jumped into Chalkmark full time, there's a lot of like online competitors popping up, that are doing the submit your own measurements, and then we'll make a suit and send it to you. So, what do you think about that segment of the industry, and did you see that and think that wow, there's a lot of competition out there?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was. I've never really competed with the online marketplace because we've been word of mouth more than anything, and just this year we've been trying to push into that online marketplace. We've worked with a lot of Instagram influencers to wear our clothing and promote us, and it's a completely different world when you're buying custom clothing online. I think that it's a market that absolutely needs to be taken advantage of. And we've tried to develop a method that makes it, I guess, easier for people to do that, because, I mean, you guys know better than most that the methods out there aren't foolproof. Usually when you buy custom clothing online, the first go is not fit the way that you want it, unless you have a very standard 42 regular build. So
you're talking to the tallest and the shortest guy in the menswear influencer space, and so we both know the struggles of off the rack.
Yeah.
But yeah,
when you buy online, it's, at least the people that I've worked with, you buy it and you expect that you're going to have to remake it with the company that you're buying from. And I think that those companies probably build that into their margins a little bit as well.
Totally. Yeah. I think most of them have either some sort of guarantee or tailoring credit. So they'll reimburse you for that stuff that they hope you can fix locally.
Yeah. So we've tried to develop it into two different sections online where we do a made to measure. We'll send out a fit sample in our pattern, and have the guy just send us a bunch of pictures, take a couple measurements off of that made to measure jacket, off of that fit sample, and then we'll make them a jacket to those measurements, which we've done successfully many, many times. The other thing we call semi-bespoke, which is we have them take a handful of measurements, but the unique thing that we do is we make them a fitting suit. And it's not like it's not a basted fitting. It's completely finished garment. We obviously will check your measurements and adjust as needed based on the pictures you send us. Our tailors are pretty confident in their ability to make a garment based on pictures, and they do a very good job at it. So we do this fitting sample, and they try it on, take a few pictures, and we adjust from there. And it usually comes back pretty freaking awesome. So we're trying to take a unique stand. Yeah, we don't make as much up front, but we want you as a client, for a long, long time. So we're willing to take obviously a little bit less on the front end to get your pattern down and make sure that you love the garment, so that in the future you can just order immediately and you can guarantee that it will fit right.
At what point? At what point does it go from you and your wife doing Chalk Mark into, okay, now I got to bring on some extra help, some tailors, maybe a salesperson? Like, what was that trajectory for you?
Right now, my wife and I are handling the majority of this. She runs the back end, and I'm out there selling clothing. And we brought on a couple of people to sell in person and to limited success. And that, I think that finding salespeople is one of the toughest things I think I've ever done. Just from a business standpoint, there are a lot of companies out there that will offer a salary, which I just can't do in a startup phase. I can offer them a straight commission, which if there's go-getters, they'll go do it. And I think we have a couple right now that are in that go-getter mood, and I think will do well for us. Our goals for expansion are we're not just limiting to Utah. Obviously, we want to be building out in the Northwest and the Southwest, and try to build the West Coast out a bit and compete with some of these bigger brands. Obviously, we're on the beginning end of that, but I think we can do it. We've got a framework in place to be able to make it pretty simple for that. So,
when you think of expansion, are you thinking mostly of selling formal wear to more guys, or selling different types of clothes to some of the same guys? Because like you see some of the made-to-measure companies offering polos and chinos and even t-shirts and stuff. So is that something you're thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, in our sales kit, we have polos, we have t-shirts. They're all custom made. We have custom denim, everything. So it's not just limited to. I think we would be foolish if we just stuck with suits and sport coats. It's just not the way that the world's going anymore. Most offices are at least business casual. You don't see a lot of offices anymore that are suits only. So we're trying to branch out as much as we can, but have sales guys who can go into offices or homes and be able to provide everything that the guy would need, so he doesn't have to go to the store. So.
Do you find that for yourself and also your salespeople, like that it takes a lot of explaining, like education, to get people to understand the value of custom, or do most guys just get it by now?
I mean, I think it's pretty saturated now. I think a lot, if you're looking for well-made suiting, it's generally custom. I think that it takes some explanation, but I'm all about trying to keep it as simple as possible and provide the value. And we're not looking to just sell you a suit and get out of there. We're looking to sell you a product that's going to fit you better than anything you've ever had before, and then retain you as a customer, not just a one-time turn and burn situation. So in order to do that, I think we have to have more than just suits and sport coats. We have to have everything.
So Brock had mentioned earlier about the online competitors popping up around 2015. I feel like even then was maybe early days, but it felt pretty big. What is it about that 2010 to 2016 period where it seems like not only did Indochino really grow and all the online companies pop up, but it seems like there's also a lot of guys doing something similar to you, where you're going out and you're sourcing your own stuff, and then you have your sales team. Like, I'm always curious to figure out what is it behind that time period that brought all these options for custom out there. Because when I started looking for clothes in 2010 for my first office job, like, it's just go to the mall. It didn't seem like there was that much out there, but today it's so accessible and it's so available.
Sure. I mean, honestly, you look at it, and even companies like Men's Warehouse, and they own Jose Bank, but both of those carry custom clothing now, and they're trying to compete in this already saturated marketplace. I could never tell you exactly what's brought this on, other than people's awareness of how they look. I think the online marketplace particularly made it easy for people to buy a custom suit for a relatively decent price and show up to the office looking better than the majority of the people there, because those people have been buying suits from Jose Bank off the rack for years. I think that at least here in Utah, I started selling custom suits in 2011. And when I started, it was me, Beckett and Rob, Tom James, and one other company called HM Cole. That was about it, selling custom clothing. Now there's probably 15 companies selling custom suits here. So I think that's pretty indicative of the rest of the country as well. It's just kind of become saturated. It's weeding out the ones that are going to fit the best and be constructed the best that I think the customers need to pay attention to. So the cheapest suit is not always the best suit. So
Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit of like technology enabled people to reach out to manufacturers, and then Instagram made people realize that you could dress really well, and then yeah, like Men's Warehouse offering that sort of stuff, and then Brock and I mentioned before, like Indochino feels like the Joseph A. Banks of custom. It's like there's going to be one
absolutely.
company that's huge, that's kind of like the Kleenex, the shorthand for custom, and that's really what Indochino's become as they've expanded, mostly by function of how much money they've raised.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at Indochino, you look at Oliver Wicks, who's an up and comer in that field, and then there's those are the kind of the opening price point, the middle price point, and then you've got Articles of Style that's up at the top there on the online threshold. That's pretty much what I'm selling garments for. You know what I mean? In person, and they have their in person operation in Manhattan that I'm sure does the majority of their business, but it's a wide variety of things. And I think Indochino got people so used to this inexpensive garment that it's taking a little bit for the more expensive ones to, I think, to really take off. I think Oliver Wicks has done a good job of that middle price point. I think they do pretty well, and I think they make a pretty decent garment.
Yeah, I've been pretty happy with all of my Oliver Wick stuff. I think it might just be that their in-house cut just tends to work for me. But it's funny. I actually I was just in a wedding in Dublin, and I was a groomsman, and we had probably 5 or 6 groomsmen coming from all over the states. And Indochino is unique in that they have a sort of like critical mass, because the groom was asking like, where should we get suits? And I was like, I couldn't think of anything else besides Indochino that people in different cities could go get measured in person. These are guys who aren't going to submit their own measurements, And I really couldn't think of any other brands that we could go custom, except for maybe Suit Supply, but that's a higher price point. So I do feel like Indochino is almost, even though there's so much competition, they're almost one of the only options for multiple cities.
Absolutely. And I think, the more people realize that, any custom tailor, it just depends on the money they want to spend, but any custom tailor will travel. I've got clients all over the country that I travel to meet with. It just depends on whether they're willing to spend the money. It's like we talked about earlier. Indochino's garment is the quality is great for the price. They've gotten a little more expensive with some of their product, but for example, all of our garments are full canvas. We don't sell a half canvas garment. We sell a lighter full canvas garment if people want it lighter. But I'm a huge proponent that you need those things in a well made garment. You need that full canvas structure. And yeah, I think Indochino offers that. So does Oliver Wicks, but they charge a little bit more for it. We just decided we didn't want to offer anything less than that. So again, it's for weddings like that. It's just dependent on the price point. But Indochino really kills it because they can offer it anywhere in the world, really. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Now, as you were going and kind of building Chalkmark, was there a point where you just had to decide, okay, I want to do like Italian fabrics and Italian construction, or choosing between Asia and some of the things offered there? Like, what was that process like?
Well, I'm coming from a very conservative place in Utah. People are super thrifty. There are some incredibly wealthy people here, but they're all thrifty. So having those Asian cloths available was a necessity. So we started selling suits at $6.95, which we still offer for our made to measure line. I had to have those available because frankly, that's just Utah. Now we've been able to meet with a lot of different clients that are, far more wealthy, that have kind of opened up that line of Italian and British cloth that, I've always wanted to be the staple of our garment. And I think it is now. That semi-bespoke and even our full bespoke garment that's, that we're currently in the process of, showing on the website, but it's a far better garment and frankly, a far better experience. When Italian cloth is mixed with high-end inner linings and interfacings and everything else, it's just a better garment. The Chinese have gotten better at making their cloth, but it's still not up to that level. So I think you have to have a a mixture of the two in order to provide, as much business as you can. But our main staple is that Italian and British cloth. I think just like every other larger custom clothing operation, it's in the same mindset. So,
Well, what do you think the future of full bespoke is? Do you think that's just a slowly dying thing, or there'll always be a luxury market for that?
man, I wish it wasn't dying, but it kind of is. There's actually a great operation that's opening up in Dallas called the American Bespoke Tailoring School, something along those lines. That's trying to train tailors because there's a need for it. There's obviously business there, but it's in the bigger cities. I'm trying to create kind of a hybrid, if you will, because that full bespoke, people love that stuff. I met with a customer yesterday I did a full bespoke fitting for him, and he was just over the moon about it. There are guys that love this process of doing a basted fitting and having 2 to 3 fittings before you get the final garment. It's kind of gone by the wayside because of mass manufacturing, but I think there's still a need and a desire for it among those who can afford it. So I think that, yes, in the big markets especially, I mean, even now you look at New York, and Huntsman is there. They have a shop in New York, a bespoke tailoring shop. There's a handful of guys that are there making garments in the city. And I aspire to have that in Utah. I think, Utah's maybe too small of a market for it, but I think it's a niche thing that we could do just fine with. I've spent the last 4 to 5 years learning from a few different tailors on jacket construction, pattern making, and everything else. So I think that makes us a little more uniquely qualified on what goes into a garment. I think eventually we'd love to have that operation here, but having our factory made garment that's done a little more uniquely is, I think the good hybrid between the two. I just can't take 120 hours to make a suit. I just don't have the time to do that. So,
How much do you interact with the wider community of people doing this, like the Beck and Robs and somebody else? I mean, do you guys get together as a group, or is it a little bit competitive?
I don't think we get together as a group, but through Instagram, or even just talking in person. I know the guys at Beck and Rob really well. I respect all of them. I think they do just a beautiful garment, and they've got a huge following on social media. They've really built out their nationwide presence, and I think they've done a great job with it. As competitors, I think we all, honestly, and I heard this from one of my competitors, but I agree with it. It's not necessarily the company, it's the person. So your customer is not looking at the company per se. Most of the time they're looking at the person they're working with. And some guys like me, some guys like Beck and Rob. It's not necessarily the garment they're looking at, it's the people. And I think that's the same in pretty much every other business too. I think when it comes right down to it, they have to look at the garment, because as much as they like me, if they don't like my garment, they're going to go somewhere else. So
Yeah,
mixture of the two, I guess.
that seems like one of the tough parts about like the quick growth of a company like Indochino is that it all comes down to that showroom experience and who's measuring you, not only their personality but their competence. And so a lot of guys have bad experiences with that last touch, even though they like the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, that's why I don't know. That's why I've wanted to not have a showroom. I never have. I did briefly with Elevate, and I hated it. All my clients wanted me to come to them. It's a much more relationship building business than people think. We're all about, especially in a market like Utah. I can't afford not to have a relationship with people, because my returning customers are the majority of my business. It's not a business that you can just work with new people every single time and expect to be successful. You've got to have a recurring sales flow with your clients that love you. So,
How important is your like online brand, like your social media presence and all that for you? Is it kind of a vanity thing, or does it actually move the needle?
I think it will move the needle. I think it's a slow process of building, because I don't want to build like a lot of brands have. I don't want to buy followers. I don't want to buy likes. I just want to build organically. And we've got a great partnership with Dapper One, he's a huge Instagram influencer, and much of his following is organic. I think better than most. And we've worked directly with him. We made him a bunch of garments and will continue to do so. And I think building through him and through a few other followers is probably our most valuable way of doing it. I've never been a huge proponent for building online because I've wanted our brand to be unique. And it has been, I've been mostly just a word of mouth, but the majority of our clients will tell you that they love the garment. I hope all of them will, but sometimes they don't tell you. But I think that's an important part of building a business. You have to have that following, and we're obviously pretty new into that sphere, but I think we will build as people see the garments and see what people like about it.
Yeah, it's definitely, you see a lot of brands that have hundreds of thousands of followers and very little engagement.
Yeah.
I always wonder how important that is. Obviously, there's some intangible benefit when you Google a brand and they have an impressive following. There's some benefit there, but I always wonder how many sales it actually drives.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Beckett and Rob, for example. I think they have over 150,000 followers, and that's been huge for them. I know they're doing trunk shows, all over the country now. So they're an example of I think a lot of their following started when they first went to PTOMO, and had some huge success there with different photographers getting their pictures, and that helped build out their Instagram following. And then there's other brands that have the same amount of followers and probably get not a ton of interaction on their posts, and I doubt they're driving a lot of traffic. But they've bought all their followers, so it looks like they're bigger, but they're actually not.
Right.
So we're trying to find the balance, I guess. It's all about balance in suiting and in business, man. I've had to take a step back and say, okay, I can't focus all my time on this online stuff because our bread and butter is meeting with people in person. And I think any suiting company will tell you that is far better than selling online. I mean, there's a reason Indochino's opened showrooms, because they're finding that they've had to remake so many stinking garments that they just would much rather measure somebody in person. Guys who had never done this for a living, they can't measure themselves very well. Unless you've started to do it and you've done it multiple times. You do it the first time and you've never done it, a half inch makes a big difference. So
I think I've ordered like 14 custom suits and I still can't get it right across all of them. It's like because every company takes it a little bit differently, and it's like you can't copy the measurements.
And you're always overcompensating for the last one,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And that's why I felt like it's important for us to step into this sphere, but only if we can do it right. I think Articles of Style has a great method of doing it, and I think ours is similar to theirs, a little different, but we both have the same concept here of, okay, I have to make something to try on them first before I just make this garment for them. I mean, when you look at dollars and cents, like if I'm making you a Vitaly Barberis garment, it's going to cost me a significant amount of money. And if I have to remake that garment, I'm not making very much money. And I can only do that so many times before I have to stop doing that. So ours is kind of unique in that we make you this fitting garment out of it's just cheap Asian cloth, but it doesn't need to be anything better than that. I mean, we're basically giving you a garment for free, but it helps us hone your fit in. The most important thing with custom suiting is the fit. The fabric, I think, comes next, but you got to get that fit down. So, barring you coming into Utah or me meeting you in New York City, I can't measure you. So we've got to figure out a way to get that in between. So,
yeah, definitely a challenge. Well, I have a section of the show we do rapid fire questions where you have like quick 1 or 2 word answers. Are you ready?
Yep.
Oxfords or brogues?
Oxfords.
Morning shower or evening shower?
Evening.
Your favorite Bond actor?
Daniel Craig for sure.
Nice. Cardio or lifting?
Lifting.
What was the last book you read?
Last book I read. Classic Tailoring Techniques for Menswear.
Ooh. I wonder if that's at the library. There it is right there. Chinos, jeans, or trousers?
Jeans. No. Trousers.
Good, yeah, sure. Good choice. Spring, summer, or fall, winter?
Fall, winter.
And for the first suit, navy or charcoal?
Navy.
And if you're getting in the shower, you want to pump yourself up, what song are you playing?
I listen to a lot of jazz, so
Jazz. It's Miles Davis.
That's a first. I don't think we've ever gotten jazz for the shower song.
Yeah.
Weird, right?
We had lo-fi hip hop
cool.
once, but jazz is new.
Right.
Well, that's great, Greg. You've survived rapid fire. What? So it sounds like you've got a lot of like blocks in front of you. Like, what are you most excited about in the next 12 months?
Honestly, I'm more excited about our full bespoke than I am anything else. I think we have a great model here of being able to be that hybrid between you having 6 fittings at a bespoke tailor shop and the custom suit that you get from pretty much anybody else. So I really hope that starts to take off. I think it will. I mean, we've got the following, at least organically, from our current customers to be able to do it. So hopefully we can just build that out and open up into more markets to provide that. So we'll see.
Very cool. We will link Chalkmark Style in the show notes, and everybody can check out Chalkmark on Instagram. Also, Dapper One is Joey Powers. He's a fellow Pittsburgh guy, so always happy to hear my hometown in there. So you can check out Joey Powers' site for some of the Chalkmark stuff. And Greg, good luck. We'll be watching your progress and see how you do.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time.
Thank you for listening to the Buttoned Up Podcast, a collaboration between John Shanahan of The Cavalier and Brock McGough of Modest Man, and we will see you next week.